The first light of dawn stretched across the alien horizon. Sharp mountains, jagged and dark, cut through the golden mist. The air was thick with a strange hum, as if the planet itself was alive and watching. Somewhere far away, enormous machines stirred, their metal bodies glinting under the rising sun. This was no ordinary world. This was the galaxy's deadliest test. And standing at the edge of it, completely unaware, was a human. He took a slow step forward, his boots crunching against the rough, rocky ground. He had walked across countless planets, faced storms and beasts, but nothing had prepared him for this. The landscape stretched endlessly, filled with obstacles and shadows that seemed to move on their own. Every sound, every shift of light, made him pause for a moment. Yet he moved on. Curiosity burned brighter than fear. In the distance, a series of enormous towers rose from the ground. They were sleek and metallic, stretching so high that their tops vanished into the mist. Energy pulsed along their surfaces like veins of light. The human didn't know it, but these towers were alive in a way he could never imagine. They were part of the test, watching, learning, and judging. Every step he took, every breath he drew, was being measured. As he walked, the wind carried a faint metallic scent, sharp and cold. Shadows shifted along the cliffs, but when he looked, nothing was there. Only the rocks, only the rising sun. His heart beat faster. Not from fear, he didn't even know what danger truly awaited, but from the thrill of the unknown. The ground began to change. Rocks became slick and sharp, and small fissures opened beneath his feet. He jumped over one and nearly slipped on another. It was a simple mistake, yet the planet seemed to respond, as if the world itself wanted to see if he could adapt. The human didn't notice. He thought it was just bad luck. But the galaxy's deadliest trial had only just begun. Suddenly, a low vibration ran through the ground. It was subtle, almost easy to ignore. But he stopped. He crouched and put a hand to the rock. The vibration was growing stronger, moving in waves. Something massive was approaching, though nothing appeared on the horizon. The human's brow furrowed. He had survived many dangers before, but instinct told him this was different. Yet curiosity pushed him forward. The landscape opened into a valley, wide and eerie. Strange plants, translucent and glowing, swayed without wind. Their light cast strange shadows that twisted and danced across the rocks. He could feel the energy of this place, a silent warning. Every being that had come here before had failed. Yet he walked on. Each step felt heavier, each breath sharper. The valley seemed endless, stretching farther than the eye could see. Then he saw it, the first trial. A massive chasm split the valley in two, wider than anything he had crossed before. Across it, jagged spires reached upward, slick and sharp. A simple fall could mean death. But the human didn't stop. He studied the spires, testing their angles, the way the light reflected off the rocks. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, balancing carefully. One misstep, and the fall would be fatal. Behind him, the towers pulsed with light. Sensors, eyes, minds, whatever they were, watched his every move. They had seen many humans try before, and many had failed. But this one, something was different. There was a spark in him, a resilience that the galaxy's deadliest trial had never encountered. Still, he didn't know. He didn't even suspect that his simple curiosity and courage would be the key to surviving what lay ahead. A sudden crack echoed through the valley. A spire beneath his foot shifted. He froze, heart pounding. But instinct took over. He leapt, landing on solid ground across the chasm. His chest heaved, but a small smile touched his lips. Danger was everywhere, but he felt alive. The sun climbed higher, illuminating the valley in harsh light, and yet he remained unaware of the full scale of what he had stepped into. As he continued, shadows seemed to move in the corners of his vision. Strange sounds echoed from far away, soft at first, then growing in intensity. He paused again. His hand hovered over his equipment, ready for anything. But the world was quiet again. Or perhaps it was just pretending. The galaxy's deadliest trial did not reveal itself all at once. It built tension, watched reactions, and waited for mistakes. By now, the human had crossed half of the valley. The towers behind him glowed brighter, and the ground beneath him thrummed softly, like a heartbeat. Something was stirring. Something that would test every limit of his body, mind, and spirit. And yet, he remained unaware. He smiled, looking out over the vast, dangerous landscape. He thought he was exploring a new planet. He had no idea he had entered a trial designed to challenge the very essence of humanity. Dawn had fully broken, and the sun painted the world in gold and crimson. Every shadow, every shimmer, every pulse of energy hinted at dangers unseen. But the human took another step forward, oblivious to the fact that he had already begun a journey that few in the galaxy had survived. The trial had begun, and the story of his courage had only just started. The human moved deeper into the valley. Every step echoed softly, yet the silence of the alien world made it feel as if the sound carried for miles. The morning sun stretched its light across jagged cliffs, casting long shadows that twisted like living things. He didn't notice them, of course. He was focused on the path ahead, curious, eager, and completely unaware of the dangers watching him from the shadows. The valley floor changed again. Rocks gave way to strange, metallic sand that shimmered with every step. It was sharp and biting, scratching at his boots, and leaving small sparks where it was disturbed. He paused to study it. The sand wasn't ordinary. It seemed to move just enough to shift under his weight. Every movement was measured, testing his balance. A misstep here could be fatal, but the human only smiled. Challenges excited him. Far above, on the cliffs, faint shapes moved. They were difficult to see, shifting with the shadows, almost invisible unless he focused. He didn't notice them. These were the first signs of the Watchers, alien observers who had designed this deadly trial. They didn't intervene yet. They simply measured, waiting, learning. Every human who entered this valley left behind a record in their memory banks. Most had never made it past this stage. As he moved forward, the air grew colder. Mist began to curl around the base of the cliffs, rising like fingers reaching for him. The landscape seemed alive, watching, responding to him. Every rock, every glowing plant, every shimmer in the distance was part of the trial. Even the faint whispering wind seemed designed to distract him, to make him stumble. But he didn't notice. His focus remained on exploration and discovery. Then the first creature appeared. It was small, no bigger than a dog, but alien in every sense. Its skin was reflective, like liquid metal, and it moved in sudden, jerky motions that made it seem unpredictable. It didn't attack immediately. Instead, it observed him, tilted its head, and then disappeared into the mist as silently as it had come. The human barely noticed, thinking it was just a strange animal. A low rumble shook the ground. He paused again, glancing around. Rocks shifted slightly, and a small fissure opened nearby. The rumble grew, vibrating through the soles of his boots. Something massive was moving beneath the surface, or maybe above. His heart raced a little, but he kept moving. Curiosity always outweighed fear in him, and this strange world only made him more determined to keep exploring. As he walked, glowing plants swayed with no wind at all. Their light reflected in his eyes, creating illusions of movement. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, and he sometimes felt eyes on him, though he saw nothing. The Watchers were patient. They didn't interfere yet. The trial was designed not just to test strength but to study reaction, to observe resilience and decision-making under stress. Every subtle danger was intentional. The valley opened again into a larger plain. Here, the trial grew more obvious. Massive spires of rock twisted and curved upward, forming natural obstacles. Some had sharp edges. Others had sheer surfaces that could collapse under weight. In the distance, a river of liquid, glowing energy ran like molten gold, cutting across the terrain. One wrong step, and he could be swept away, or worse. Yet he continued, completely unaware. Suddenly, a low, haunting sound echoed across the plain. It was soft at first, like distant singing, then grew louder, vibrating in the chest. The human stopped, listening. His instinct screamed at him to pay attention, but he shook his head and smiled, thinking it was just wind over the rocks. The Watchers, hidden high above or far beyond sight, recorded everything. Most humans would have panicked at this sound, but he stayed calm. Calmness was rare here, and it gave him a small edge. Then he noticed the first real sign of the trial's design. A section of the glowing river had rocks that formed a natural bridge, but it was unstable. Small tremors from below made the rocks shift slightly. He hesitated, crouched, and studied the movements. This was the first moment the trial truly tested his intelligence and observation skills. One mistake, and the fall could be deadly. He measured each step carefully and moved across, never fully realizing he had passed a test no human had survived before. As he reached the other side, shadows twisted in the distance. The watchers had begun to react, subtle changes in the environment showing their silent communication. A small boulder toppled over far away, a warning, or perhaps a signal. The human only noticed it briefly, shrugged, and continued forward. His curiosity was endless, his caution selective. The sun climbed higher, burning away the early mist. The valley seemed calmer, but nothing had truly changed. Danger was everywhere, hidden, waiting, and growing. The human continued his path, unaware that he was no longer merely exploring. He was now a participant in the galaxy's deadliest trial. Each step measured, each breath observed, each choice recorded. And yet, he smiled. The thrill of the unknown drove him forward, giving him courage, even as the watchers prepared for the challenges to come. The trial was far from over. The valley held countless surprises, traps, and deadly tests, each designed to break the human body, mind, and spirit. But for now, the human remained blissfully unaware, stepping confidently into the dangers that lurked just beyond the light. The valley stretched endlessly, but the human did not notice the length. Every step was careful, yet confident. The glowing river behind him flowed silently, casting long reflections across jagged rocks. For a moment, the world seemed calm, almost welcoming, but appearances were deceiving. Ahead, the ground began to slope upward. Massive stone spires rose like the fingers of some ancient giant. The path narrowed, forcing careful footing. Small tremors made the rocks shift beneath him, a warning he barely registered. The watchers were observing. Every move, every hesitation, every instinctive reaction was being measured. And then he saw it, the first real trial. A massive chasm split the ground, wider than anything he had crossed before. The far side was jagged and steep, the rock slick with a faint, unknown energy. Below, the glowing river ran like liquid fire, a warning of the danger that awaited a single misstep. He froze for a moment, studying the gap. This was no ordinary obstacle. This was a test designed to measure balance, patience, and courage. He stepped closer. The edge crumbled slightly under his weight, a whisper of instability. He crouched, feeling the vibration through his boots. Each step forward sent a ripple through the rocky surface. The human paused, thinking carefully. One wrong move, one rush of adrenaline, and the fall would be fatal. He glanced around. Shadows twisted unnaturally across the chasm, shapes dancing in the periphery of his vision. Glowing plants bent toward him as if reaching out, their light casting confusing patterns on the rocks. Every instinct screamed caution, yet he moved forward. He tested the stones with careful pressure, stepping only when certain they could hold. Halfway across, the first real danger struck. A loose rock beneath his foot shifted sharply. His heart jumped. Instinct took over. He leapt, barely catching the next stable stone with his boots. A spark of energy flared where the rock moved, as if the valley itself was marking the attempt. The human landed safely but felt the burn of adrenaline. He smiled. Danger was part of adventure, part of discovery. The watchers above observed silently. Many humans had failed at this very point, swept into the glowing river below. But this one, he was calm, adaptable, and persistent. The trial had begun in earnest, but he was responding in ways even the watchers had not predicted. A low rumble echoed from the far cliffs. Dust fell from jagged edges, and a distant spire cracked. The trial was alive, testing his stamina as well as his mind. The human adjusted his pace, moving deliberately, carefully, yet steadily. He paused to catch his breath, scanning the chasm. Mist curled around the edges, and strange lights flickered in the distance. He didn't know what they were, but he felt a thrill. Then came the final stretch. The chasm widened suddenly, forcing him to jump across a gap larger than before. He crouched, measured the distance, and ran. With one powerful leap, he landed safely on the other side. The stones underfoot vibrated faintly, as if acknowledging his success. The human exhaled deeply, relief and excitement mixing in his chest. He had survived the first trial. But survival did not mean safety. The valley was far from calm. Shadows moved faster now, shapes flickering along the cliffs. Alien plants bent subtly toward him, their glowing tendrils almost alive. The watchers began to adjust the environment, subtly raising the difficulty of the trials ahead. Every step he took, every success, made the next challenge harder. As he moved forward, he saw the evidence of previous failures. Scattered equipment, broken armor, and scorch marks on the rocks hinted at those who had attempted this journey before and had failed. The human paused, scanning the remains. Most humans would have been frightened, maybe turned back. But he only felt curiosity, a growing determination to see what lay ahead. The valley was dangerous, yes, but it was also a place of discovery, and he wanted to explore it fully. The path began to narrow again, twisting between massive stone spires. Every step required attention, every breath measured. Strange, soft sounds came from the cliffs, whispers of wind, or perhaps something more. The watchers adjusted again, shifting obstacles subtly, ensuring the human remained tested. Every instinct he used, every cautious movement, was teaching him to survive in this deadly world. By the time he reached the end of the chasm, the sun had climbed high. Mist and shadow danced across the valley, creating illusions of danger. But the human moved forward, confident, unaware of the full scope of the trial he had just survived. His first major obstacle was behind him, but the valley had countless more waiting. And so, he pressed on. Each step forward was a mix of curiosity, courage, and unknowing bravery. The first trial had tested him, and he had passed. The watchers recorded every detail, noting his resilience. Few humans had ever come this far, and fewer still had done so without realizing the danger. The valley stretched on ahead, filled with unknown perils, puzzles, and threats. And the human, oblivious to the observers and the deadly design of the world, continued walking, ready for whatever lay ahead. The first trial was complete, but the deadliest tests were still to come. The human moved cautiously through the valley, but he did not realize how closely he was being watched. Every step he took, every movement of his eyes, every shift in his breathing was recorded. Somewhere, far above the cliffs, alien observers analyzed his actions. They were silent, invisible, yet their presence shaped the world around him. The path ahead narrowed further, twisting between jagged cliffs and sharp spires. Mist hung low, curling around the rocks like fingers. Strange shadows shifted in the fog, always at the edge of his vision. He paused occasionally, thinking it was just the play of light. He did not know that the watchers were testing his perception, seeing how he reacted to subtle threats. A sudden noise made him freeze. It was soft at first, like distant clanging of metal, then sharper, a loud crack that echoed across the valley. He scanned the cliffs, but saw nothing. Only rocks, only mist, only the glow of strange plants. His instincts told him to move carefully, but curiosity pushed him forward. Each step was measured, but he remained unaware that this was more than just exploration. It was part of the trial. The watchers made small adjustments. A rock shifted slightly under his feet. A glowing plant bent toward him, casting confusing shadows across the path. He stumbled once but quickly recovered, unaware that the environment was reacting to his every move. The valley itself was alive, testing his patience, focus, and courage. Then he noticed movement in the distance. Shapes, dark and fleeting, darted along the cliffs. He squinted, trying to see clearly. Were they creatures, or just illusions created by the mist and light? He could not tell. The watchers had created the shadows intentionally, to see how he responded. Most humans would panic, retreat, or make mistakes. But he stayed calm, heart steady, eyes alert. A low hum vibrated through the valley. It was faint but persistent, coming from the rocks, the plants, even the mist. The vibration made the ground feel alive beneath his boots. He paused, crouched, and pressed his hand against a stone. It thrummed faintly, almost like it was speaking. He had no idea that this was a test of his senses, designed to challenge his perception and stamina. As he moved forward, the valley seemed to change subtly. Paths that had seemed clear now twisted unexpectedly. Small fissures opened beneath rocks, forcing him to step carefully. A gust of wind carried a metallic scent, sharp and cold. It made him pause and inhale, curious but cautious. The watchers noted every reaction. His calm curiosity was rare, almost unmatched. Suddenly, a small creature appeared. Its skin shimmered like liquid metal, and it moved in jerky, unpredictable motions. It stopped a few meters away, tilted its head, and observed him silently. The human barely noticed. He thought it was just a strange animal. But the watchers watched it too, knowing it was a part of the test, a measure of his awareness, patience, and ability to handle unexpected challenges. A distant cliff cracked. Dust and small rocks fell, bouncing along the jagged terrain. The vibration ran through the ground, and a low echo filled the valley. He instinctively adjusted his footing, keeping balance on the shifting stones. Even the smallest adjustments were part of the trial, teaching him to adapt, survive, and persevere. As he walked, shadows danced across the valley floor. They twisted and flickered, sometimes forming shapes that looked almost alive. The human stopped once or twice, curious, cautious, but never fearful. The watchers had expected hesitation, panic, maybe even retreat. Instead, he moved steadily forward, fully engaged in exploration, unknowingly passing the second stage of the trial. The path led him to a narrow bridge of stone stretching across a deep fissure. Below, the glowing river flowed like molten gold. The bridge trembled slightly as he stepped onto it. He paused, crouched, and tested the first stones with careful pressure. The watchers observed silently, noting the precision of his movements. One wrong step could mean falling into the glowing river, yet he crossed carefully, completely unaware of the trial's full danger. Once across, he paused to catch his breath. The sun had climbed higher, casting long shadows that twisted in unnatural ways. Mist hung in the air, glowing faintly. Strange lights flickered at the edges of his vision. He felt a thrill of excitement and curiosity, unaware that the entire environment, the shadows, the vibrations, even the creatures, was part of a grand design to test him. The watchers adjusted again. Rocks shifted slightly. The air seemed colder, heavier. The next stage of the trial was being prepared, subtle changes that would increase danger, challenge stamina, and test mental focus. But the human remained oblivious, focused entirely on moving forward, observing, exploring, and surviving. By now, he had begun to notice a pattern. The valley was unpredictable, alive, and dangerous, but he still did not know he was being observed. He smiled faintly, feeling the thrill of the unknown, the challenge, and the adventure. The watchers continued to record, noting every detail, preparing for the trials that lay ahead. The valley stretched on, more dangerous and mysterious than before. The human pressed forward, calm, courageous, and completely unaware that he had entered the galaxy's deadliest trial. Every step, every breath, every decision mattered, and the watchers, hidden and silent, knew that the real test was still to come. The valley ahead grew darker, not from the sun, but from the shadows of massive, jagged cliffs. The human walked carefully, boots crunching against rough rocks, unaware that the deadliest part of the trial was waiting just beyond the next rise. Every step fell heavier, as if the world itself was testing his stamina, patience, and courage. He reached a wide plain. At first glance, it seemed calm, but the ground shimmered strangely, a faint, glowing energy flowing beneath the rocks. The watchers had prepared the next stage, a true test of strength and intelligence. It was a challenge designed to push any human to the edge of endurance. He had crossed smaller trials before, but this one would not forgive mistakes. Ahead, massive obstacles rose. Stone spires twisted like claws, some slick with energy, others sharp as blades. Between them, pools of glowing liquid crackled with a strange light. The air itself seemed alive, pulsing with danger. The human hesitated, scanning the path. His instincts warned him of danger, but his curiosity and confidence pushed him forward. He took the first step into the field of obstacles. The ground trembled slightly beneath him. Small rocks rolled away, and the glowing pools emitted faint sparks. He jumped over one, slid past another, and crouched under a low, sharp spire. Every movement had to be precise. A single mistake could be fatal. The watchers above observed silently. Few humans had ever reached this stage. Most had fallen, failed, or retreated. But he moved steadily, carefully, and with an instinctive awareness that surprised even the observers. The trial was alive, adjusting to his movements, forcing him to adapt constantly. A sudden crack echoed through the plain. One of the spires shifted, sliding slightly toward him. He reacted quickly, leaping to the side. Sparks flew from the glowing liquid below. His heart pounded, adrenaline coursing through his veins. This was no longer just a test of observation. It was a test of survival, of quick thinking, and physical skill. He paused for a moment, catching his breath. Mist rose from the glowing pools, curling around his legs. Strange sounds echoed across the plain, soft hums, distant clanging, and whispers carried by the wind. The human could feel the weight of the challenge pressing down, but he did not falter. He was determined, curious, and unaware that the stakes were higher than he could imagine. Then the first creature appeared. It was larger than the small watchers he had seen before, its body sleek, metallic, and almost invisible in the shadows. It moved quickly, testing his reaction. The human did not panic. He observed, timed its movements, and stepped carefully. The creature lunged, but he dodged, landing on stable ground. Sparks flew from the energy pools, marking the edge of danger. The ground trembled again. A spire collapsed behind him, sending a cascade of rocks and glowing liquid into the path he had just crossed. The valley seemed alive, actively trying to prevent him from continuing. He did not hesitate. He calculated the safest path forward, moving with careful precision, ignoring fear, relying on instinct and observation. Hours, or maybe minutes, time seemed unclear, passed as he navigated the deadly plain. Each step tested endurance, strength, and mental focus. He felt exhaustion creeping in, muscles aching, but his determination did not waver. He had survived smaller trials, and this one was pushing him to his limits. The watchers noted his persistence, impressed by a human who could endure without realizing the full danger. Finally, he reached a narrow passage between two massive spires. The glowing liquid pooled dangerously close to the edge. One wrong step, and he could fall into the lethal pools. His boots trembled slightly on the unstable rock. He crouched, measured every step, and slowly advanced. Each movement required patience, courage, and control over fear. As he emerged from the passage, the plain behind him seemed to sigh, a shift in the energy, as if the valley recognized his success. He was not safe yet. The Deadliest challenge was not just a physical trial. It was also a test of endurance, strategy, and resilience. He had survived, but the watchers knew the true danger was still ahead. He paused, looking back at the path he had crossed. Sparks flickered from the glowing pools, shadows twisted unnaturally, and the valley seemed alive with energy. A small smile appeared on his face. The human felt a thrill of accomplishment, unaware of how close he had come to failure. He had passed the deadliest challenge of the valley, and yet the trial was far from over. The sun dipped slightly, casting long shadows across the valley. Mist swirled, glowing faintly. The watchers adjusted the environment again, preparing for the next stage. The human pressed on, each step a mix of curiosity, courage, and instinct. He was unaware that every move, every decision, every breath was being recorded, measured, and studied. The valley stretched on, more dangerous and unpredictable than before. The Deadliest challenge had tested him, but it had also revealed his hidden strength, strength that no other human had shown. And the watchers, observing silently, knew that the greatest trials were still to come. The human continued, step by careful step, moving deeper into the valley. Exhausted but determined, aware of danger but undeterred, he pressed onward. The Deadliest challenge was behind him, but the galaxy's trial had only begun. The human had crossed the deadliest plain, yet the valley seemed to grow more alive with danger. Shadows twisted unnaturally, and faint whispers drifted through the mist. Every step he took felt heavier, as if the world itself was testing his endurance. His muscles ached, his breath came faster, but still he moved forward, unaware of the eyes watching him silently. Ahead, a massive spire rose like a jagged tower, splitting the sky. At its base, a swirling pool of glowing energy pulsed violently. The ground trembled as if warning him to turn back, but he didn't. Curiosity and instinct drove him forward. The watchers, hidden far above, exchanged faint pulses of light, noting every decision he made. Suddenly, the terrain shifted beneath him. A fissure opened, wide enough to swallow a man. Rocks slid dangerously, glowing pools of energy bubbled, and mist swirled around him like hands reaching out. He froze for a heartbeat, but then something inside him pushed forward. He leapt, landing just on the edge of stable ground. Sparks from the glowing pools hissed beneath him, yet he remained upright. He realized something, though only faintly. He was stronger than he had imagined. His endurance, his reflexes, his courage, it all came naturally, almost instinctively. He adjusted his footing carefully, moving across unstable rocks, and felt an inner strength rising with every step. The watchers had never seen a human respond with such resilience, especially without realizing the full danger. The air grew colder, the mist thicker. Strange, glowing plants bent toward him as if trying to block his path. Shadows lengthened and twisted, forming shapes that seemed almost alive. A low hum vibrated in the rocks, pulsing faster as he moved forward. He crouched, listening, sensing the vibrations, moving in rhythm with the energy of the valley. The world was alive, testing him, and he was responding in ways even the Watchers had not predicted. Then, a creature appeared, a massive predator with metallic skin and glowing eyes. Its movements were fast, calculated, and terrifying. Most humans would have panicked, but he didn't. He observed, timed its actions, and moved with precise calculation. The creature lunged, and instinct guided him to jump aside. He landed on a glowing rock, heart pounding, adrenaline surging. For the first time, he realized just how much he could endure, and how much he could adapt in the face of danger. The valley itself seemed to recognize his hidden strength. Rocks shifted subtly to form a path, the glowing pools pulsed gently, and the mist cleared slightly. It was as if the world acknowledged that he could survive, that he belonged here in this deadly trial. But he did not yet understand the full scale of what he had faced, or the even greater challenges still ahead. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time felt strange in this valley, as he navigated the treacherous terrain. Every step tested stamina, every decision tested intelligence, every move tested courage. Yet he pressed onward. His focus never wavered, his curiosity never faded, and his inner strength kept him alive. He realized, though not fully consciously, that he was different from the humans who had come before. He could endure, adapt, and survive in ways few others could. A sudden tremor shook the ground violently. A massive spire shifted, threatening to collapse. Rocks tumbled toward him, glowing pools bubbled dangerously, and mist swirled like a storm. He ran, leapt, and slid with precision, narrowly avoiding the falling debris. Each near-fatal moment revealed more of his hidden strength, his ability to stay calm, act decisively, and survive against impossible odds. As he reached a narrow ledge overlooking the valley, he paused, breath heavy, body aching. He looked out over the expanse below. Jagged cliffs, glowing pools, twisting shadows, and distant spires reaching into the sky. The Watchers observed silently, impressed and surprised. Few humans had ever reached this point. Fewer still had done so without fear overtaking their logic. He had survived every test, every trap, every trial, and yet he barely realized it. A faint smile touched his lips. He felt a thrill unlike any other, a sense of accomplishment mixed with excitement. The hidden strength within him had revealed itself, not just physical endurance, but courage, adaptability, and resilience beyond measure. The valley was far from done testing him, but he was ready. The Watchers adjusted the environment again. Rocks, spires, and mist shifted subtly, preparing the next challenge. The human pressed forward, every step showing more of the inner strength he had discovered. He had faced the valley's most dangerous trials, yet he remained unaware of just how extraordinary his endurance truly was. The sun dipped low, casting long, dramatic shadows across the jagged terrain. Mist swirled and shimmered in the fading light. The human continued, moving carefully but confidently, prepared for whatever the valley, or the Watchers, would throw at him next. The hidden strength within him had carried him this far, and it would be the key to surviving the final, greatest trials still to come. For now, he was unstoppable, though he did not yet know it. The human climbed the last slope of the valley, every step heavier than the last. His legs ached, his breath came in short gasps, yet he moved forward with determination. The sun had dipped low, casting long, golden shadows across jagged cliffs and glowing pools. Every part of the valley seemed alive, every stone and misty swirl reacting to his presence. He did not know he was being watched, that every action had been recorded and studied by unseen alien observers. Ahead, the valley opened into a vast plateau. Jagged rocks rose like towers, casting sharp shadows, and glowing pools spread across the terrain like molten veins. The air hummed with energy. This was the final stage of the trial, the part that had defeated countless humans before him. But he stepped forward with quiet confidence, unaware of the danger he had already survived. The Watchers observed silently, exchanging pulses of light and subtle signals. Few humans had ever reached this point. Fewer still had endured every trial without panic or hesitation. His resilience, courage, and adaptability were extraordinary, though he remained oblivious to it. He approached a massive spire at the center of the plateau. Its surface glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Between the spire and the glowing pool stretched a path of narrow, unstable rocks. A single misstep could send him plunging into the energy below. He paused, crouched, and measured each movement carefully. With steady hands and precise steps, He crossed the final obstacle. Rocks trembled beneath him, sparks flickered from the glowing pools, and shadows danced wildly around him, but he moved as if guided by instinct. Every step was calculated, yet effortless. He had survived the deadliest trial of the valley without fully realizing its danger. A soft hum rose from the spire, vibrating through the ground. The air shimmered, and a subtle light washed over him. The watchers exchanged silent signals. The trial had been designed to test not just strength and endurance, but patience, intelligence, and courage. And he had passed. Completely, perfectly, and unknowingly. He looked around the plateau, breath heavy but steady. The jagged cliffs, glowing pools, and shifting shadows that had challenged him now seemed calm in comparison to what he had just overcome. He did not know he had achieved what so many had failed at, that the valley itself seemed to acknowledge his victory. The mist curled around his boots, glowing softly. The air pulsed, faint energy running along the rocks. He felt a thrill of accomplishment but did not yet understand why. All he knew was that he had survived, that he had faced danger after danger, and that he was still standing. Suddenly, a figure, or perhaps just a shadow, moved across the plateau's edge. It was fast, almost imperceptible. The human barely noticed, glancing briefly before continuing forward. He did not realize it was an observer, one of the hidden beings who had watched him from the start. They had never seen a human endure so much, react with such calm, and survive every test. But he remained blissfully unaware of the awe he inspired. He walked to the base of the central spire. Its glowing surface pulsed gently, and a strange hum filled the air. The watchers noted every movement, every breath, every glance. They had designed this trial to push humans to the edge, to break body, mind, and spirit. Yet he had not broken. He had endured. He had adapted. He had survived. A soft wind blew across the plateau, carrying the scent of energy and stone. The human closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. He smiled faintly, feeling stronger, braver, and more alive than ever before. He did not know the valley had tested him, that the watchers had marveled at his hidden strength, or that he had completed the deadliest trial in the galaxy. He turned and looked out over the valley he had crossed. Jagged cliffs, glowing pools, shifting shadows, all of it stretched below him. He had survived every danger, overcome every challenge, and faced trials no other human had endured. Yet he remained unaware of how extraordinary his achievement truly was. The watchers retreated silently, leaving the valley to rest, knowing the human had passed their ultimate test. Few beings had ever completed what he had accomplished. The trial had measured every limit, pushed every boundary, and revealed the hidden strength within him. He had survived, not by luck, not by skill alone, but by courage, adaptability, and the unknowable determination that humans sometimes carried. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the valley in gold and crimson. The human stood on the plateau, unaware, uncelebrated, yet victorious. His journey was far from over. Beyond the valley, more challenges awaited, greater dangers, and even deadlier trials. But for now, he had won. The galaxy's deadliest trial had been survived, and he remained blissfully unaware of the greatness he had achieved. And so, he took another step forward, into the unknown, carrying the hidden strength that had brought him through the valley. The watchers observed in silence, knowing that the story of this human had only just begun.